Awala nanitawan ka, yulu nanitawan ka, tamikimuli ka, iskitu kinyanki. Awala nanitawan ka, yulu nanitawan ka, tamikimuli ka, iskitu kinyanki.
The land, the territory, is our mother. An indigenous person without land is not an indigenous. The indigenous peoples in Nicaragua are placed in two socio-demographical areas derived from the European colonization because it was completely different. The indigenous peoples in the Pacific, the center, and the north of Nicaragua are four, and they live in 22 communities. They are the Chorotegas, Nahua, Sioux, Cacaopera. Their ancestors were colonized by Spain. In the other side of Nicaragua, on the Caribbean side of Nicaragua, the indigenous peoples were colonized by England. They are the Miskito, Mayangna, Rama, and Ulua. But you can also find Afro-descendants, Garifuna, and Creole. Today, the land rights of indigenous peoples are recognized in the political constitution of Nicaragua. The indigenous peoples on the Caribbean coast of Nicaragua now can exercise their right to autonomy, a law that was approved by the Nicaraguan government in 1987. For the indigenous peoples in Nicaragua, land territory is a very important characteristic of their identity. From the confirmation of the Nicaraguan state, there are different experiences in using the map for the defense of their territories and the restitutions of their historical rights. There are communities that have titles that were signed by the kings of Spain, by the Miskito king, between 1600 and 1900. The indigenous peoples on the Mosquitia included their demand for territory on the treaties that were signed between England and Nicaragua in 1860 and the treaty that was signed between the United States and Nicaragua in 1905, from which there was a title commission that granted titles to indigenous communities. After 10 years of war between 1980 and 1990, there were not many demands related with mapping. But once the war ended in 1990 and the communities felt that we were already living in peace, they gave the first steps to begin to organize the autonomous regions. But there was a big problem. A lot of mestizos peasants from the rest of Nicaragua, a lot of farmers from the rest of Nicaragua saw the indigenous territories, saw the autonomous regions as areas that were inhabited by people. And again, the indigenous communities began to see the use of maps as an important tool to demand the respect of their rights, to stop the colonos from coming into their territories, to end deforestation as a tool to protect their territory. Indigenous peoples understood that not only with other strategies they would end the advance of the colonizers. Indigenous peoples began to demand a law that would demark and legalize their territories, as how it is stated in the Constitution and in the autonomy law. After a process of consultation, in 2002, the National Assembly of Nicaragua approved the Law 445. That is a law that recognizes the communal titles. Other important aspects of the Law 445 is that it recognizes that the contracts over and concessions over natural resources have to be approved by the communities. It recognizes the collective possessions in the areas around islands, and it also recognizes that the areas that are the protected areas should be co-managed between the community and the government. It recognizes the communal authority, their traditional ways of organizations and elections, and it also defines the way in which communities should be consulted and the way in which agreements should be reached between the government and the communities over any type of external concession over their territories. It encompasses the lands that are inhabited by the community and those that they have used traditionally for their social, economical, cultural activities. Between 2006 and 2013, the National Demarcation Commission, in which indigenous communities participate, and it is presided by the autonomous regions, have concluded the process of demarcating and titling indigenous territories. It has been a very important process through which indigenous communities have demarcated their territories. 30% of the Nicaraguan territory are now under the collective possession of indigenous peoples. Now we are in the process of defining the relations between indigenous peoples who owns their territory with the ones that have invaded their territory. That is called the phase of saneamiento. But we are also in the process of strengthening the capacity of the owners of their territory to manage to conserve their territories, and we are trying to prepare to exercise our right to autonomy.
Dawanka, yulu nani dawanka, tamiki mulika, miskitu kinyanki. Awala nani dawanka, yulu nani dawanka, tamiki mulika, miskitu kinyanki.